Welcome to the Copper State Marching Podcast, sponsored by the Arizona Marching Band Association, AZMBA. My name is Martin Hebda, the AZMBA Director of Education and Outreach.
And I'm Dan Hoffman, AZMBA Blueprint Advisor and Judge. The AZMBA Copper State Podcast was created to bring together the Arizona marching band community and to connect, educate, and entertain those involved in this wonderful activity.
Dan, winter season is over. I'm sure it's a chance for all of us to breathe, and I know you did a good amount of judging this year. How did that work? Any experiences you wanted to share?
It was a fun season. I think this is year number 5 for me in Arizona and year number 1 going out of state, which is really cool. So I'm at that point now where the novelty is still there, but I'm very acutely aware of all the ways in which I want to grow. And so it's really interesting putting on my teacher hat again. We need to keep on growing in what we know, and we can get better with every tape, every show. So that's kind of where my mind is at right now. How do I get even better and even more useful for the groups and communities I'm serving?
Nice, nice. What are the captions that you find yourself judging the most?
For the most part, effect visual with a little bit of visual put in there. And I'm trying really hard to not make my visual tapes just be another effect tape.
Oh,
So,
yeah. And for the fall, what is your specialty for the fall?
fall, I believe I'm going to be doing mostly a mixture of ensemble visual and effect visual as well. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Well, both circuits are lucky to have you, I'll tell you that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Well, I am excited to be here today, though, because we're talking about Colorguard, specifically recruiting. And we have 3 of the best figures in our state with us here today. We're going to have a great conversation with Keith Casey, Ashley Schmit, and Austin Yost.
Yeah, it was a great conversation indeed. And as our listeners know, the Copper State Marching Podcast does have an email address, so you can reach out to us. And we've asked for some end of the year dilemmas or even going into the summer dilemmas that you might have. And we had some questions come in already.
The question here is, I am trying to prepare for our end of year concert, and it seems like I have students pulled from class all the time. It will only get worse when we get to May when it comes to AP testing. How am I supposed to prepare? What do you do?
Well, that's a tough thing, because as a band director, you just want to have absolutely everybody there. The good thing is, ahead of time when these AP exams are. I think a tough one for people is senior ditch day because they just have all this stuff they want to do, and then the seniors take their day. And shockingly, I am very sympathetic for the senior ditch day, which doesn't necessarily go with my personality, but I don't know. They're seniors. I want them to enjoy their time, and I think that they've earned it. And I think that's just something that everybody needs to do. So I don't give them a hard time when that comes. You can get stressed about it and it doesn't change anything. There's things that students are involved in, just as they're involved in band. They've got track meets are a big thing that's going on right now. There's interviews, there's award ceremonies, and all those other things that may come across the way. And you do the best you can. You try and the bet if you're able to find out who's going to be gone when, maybe you can program what you're going to be rehearsing at what time. If you have a soloist or a section that's gone, communicate with them is probably the best thing that you can do. But getting overly upset, it doesn't help anything. It just gives you more stress. So that's kind of my advice. Is it ideal? No, it's not ideal. The best rehearsals when you have everybody there all the time and they're playing in tune. But honestly, you work with the situation and your concert's going to be awesome regardless. So that's kind of my feedback.
I love that. I think it sounds like, in some ways, it's just expanding your perspective and really remembering that these are students, that this is this is a quintessential high school experience. This is happening. And so your anger isn't necessarily going to be useful as much as accepting the situation for what it is. And I wonder to what extent your easefulness or your acceptance might entice your students to do what they can to be as many rehearsals as possible for you. So, yeah.
And they do. They want to be there. They want to be as prepared as possible. And honestly, they don't want to disappoint people. So you really just got to encourage them. And we're there for them. We're there for our students. So that's kind of my thoughts. And if you have any other thoughts or dilemmas you'd like to send to us, remember it's at podcast@azmba.org. And before we start our conversations with our color guard instructors, let's hear from our supporters. AZMBA would like to thank our sponsors: Arizona Cardinals Football Club, The Band Shop, Bravgo Media, Encore Gifts, Forte Athletics, Instrumental Music Center, MacPac, Milano's Music, Music Celebrations International, Music for All, Pieces of Flair, Scoreboard Fundraising, Show Dots, Tide Dry Cleaners, and Yamaha. Thank you for supporting AZMBA. And we welcome Ashley Schmit, Keith Casey, and Austin Yost to the podcast. We appreciate you coming on today. I hope you've recovered from the WGI Championships. Do you have any stories to share?
Just a lot of watching, a lot of viewing. We only made it in the first round. Austin could probably speak better. He made it into round two. So about the WGI experience.
Honestly, recovered. No, I'm currently under the weather. The Dayton sickness really got us this year with Oasis, but thankfully everybody waited until after we got home. But overall, the WGI experience this year was really great. Weather held out for us all weekend, which is rare going to Dayton, Ohio, especially for the Colorguard round. And the experience was awesome. Everybody had a great time, and we really showed out well for Arizona this year, I think, in the Colorguard side. So.
Yeah, I got to view a lot of groups, including the Arizona groups, but I just couldn't believe the growth this year overall at World Championships. There's just a lot of amazing teams.
The competitive aspect was kind of eye-opening for some of us, like every level, like that's A class. Oh my God, that's open. We even made a joke to some of the Scholastic workers. We renamed them Intergalactic Scholastic because they were just so ridiculously good.
Yeah, I think across the entire activity, everybody's really stepping it up. And every year that we get further from COVID, we're getting back into what the activity has really been known for so long. And honestly, I believe pretty soon here, we're going to be surpassing what the activity has seen pre-COVID. These students are pushing themselves further, and with all the resources that they have now, every single kid can watch WGI finals. And in the past, that was never the case. So.
And it's so cool with all of you. I mean, thinking about, yes, Colorguard is exploding on the national stage, but I think it's exploding in Arizona too, or has been. And I feel like you three are some of the people that will be on our current Mount Rushmore of Arizona Colorguard. So so cool that you can join us. I'm personally just excited because I think this is my first time getting to speak to any of you for the most part, except maybe Ashley, not in a judge's critique setting for 3 minutes. So I'm excited to learn more about you and to hear some of your wisdom. But just to get some background, I would love to hear from each of you. Tell us a little bit about your Colorguard journey. What's your role here in Arizona? How long have you been for? Tell us about you.
I started at Agua Fria High School and did the marching band there in the winter season, and then I ended up moving over to Exaltation, which is through Momentum Youth Arts. And then I was encouraged to march Blue Knights by my band director, but my mom didn't want me to go that far. So I ended up going to Academy. So I was a part of Academy's first year as a traveling drum corps. So that was fun. And then after high school, I did ASU marching band, and then did Vanguard, and then did Academy Winter Guard when Academy had a Winter Guard, and then did Phoenix. And now I'm teaching at Mountain Ridge High School. I'm the Color Guard director there. And then I'm the Color Guard caption manager at Blue Knights.
Yeah, mine is kind of a twisted tale. I actually started out as a horn player. My experiences, I started in high school. I played trumpet all through high school. When I got to college, I switched to French horn. My drum corps experience is actually, I marched 2 years with Spirit of Atlanta way back in the 80s. In 1987-88, I played soprano/trumpet, and then I marched mellophone for 4 years in Star of Indiana. So I aged out in 92. Yes, I'm really old. And then my experience I did an independent World Winter Guards called State Review back in 93. And so I did that. In college, I was drum major. I did tons of things. And so I graduated from Jacksonville State University with a degree, and then I moved over to Georgia after I graduated college. I'm from Alabama originally, so I started in Georgia. I went to school at Kennesaw State there, graduated, got my second degree, and then I started teaching English actually at Lasser High School. I taught color guard at Sprayberry 94, 95, and then I started at Lasser in 96. And then I got hired teaching English at Lasser in the fall of 98. So I worked with their program from 96 to 2000. I was another school, Wheeler, for 2 more years, and then I opened Kell High School, and then I switched to doing color guard at Pope High School. So I was there from 2003 to 2007. Then I moved out to Arizona, and I taught with Mesquite High School, their band program in Winter Guard. from 2007 to 2011. And I taught English at Red Mountain High School. And then I moved to Desert Vista in 2011 for Colorguard. I got hired teaching English here in 2012. So I've been at Desert Vista with the marching program since 2011, but I've also been teaching English here since 2012. So I'm a 28-year English teaching veteran and started teaching Colorguard in 1992. So there's a lot of years. So yeah, it's a lot. But that's kind of how my journey. I started as the horn player, kind of weaved into the Colorguard aspect. So
My dream. Amazing. So cool. Austin, how about you?
So I actually went to school at Highland High School out in the East Valley. After I graduated, I started my drum corps career. Most of my marching experience outside of high school is drum corps. I marched a summer at the Academy in 13, and I marched 4 more summers at the Bluecoats from 14 to 17. And I marched 1 indoor season at Phoenix Independent in 2014. And then by 2016, I was starting Oasis and teaching, and I really kind of started to focus all my energy on teaching. So I've been doing that since I graduated high school. Oasis started in 2016. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this last season. And then currently I'm teaching at Eastmark High School. I started there in 2021. I've been there since then. And Higley High School, I started there in 2018. I've been there ever since as well. And then I pop around here and there helping either color guard staff, design, things like that across Arizona and sometimes out of state as well. I teach drum corps as well. I should also put that out there. Previously, I was a tech at the Academy. I was a co-caption head at the Academy in 2023, and this year I'll be joining the staff at the Bluecoats.
So there's a lot of talent on this conversation right here. This is
I'm so scared. This is
I
great.
know, right? This is no pressure on us, right? Pretty impressive. So one thing that has always kind of been on the back of my mind, and I'm thinking as a band director, okay? And I always want to encourage the color guard growth, and we want to grow the color guard, and that's kind of what made me think about this topic. And it may be like a starting point for us, and we may veer off in different ways. But just real quick, some ideas that you might have, or what your recruiting process looks like. And we may want to talk about, well, this is what it looks like now at umpteenth year at this school, but what did it look like when you were trying to build? And that's kind of where we're trying to get some ideas out for our listeners.
Our school district's kind of unique in that it's just a high school only school district. So we don't have a unified school district from like K through 12 for Tempe Union. So that when I first moved here kind of presented some obstacles because going to the middle schools was like going to sort of a foreign land almost. So there wasn't a lot of like cohesiveness from like 8th grade to 9th grade in that sense. So that was a bridge that took a while to sort of like break. I mean, we had it's really weird. All of a sudden, it's like in the last 3 years, all of a sudden our numbers have just shot up and we don't really know why or what happened. I guess maybe just words got up. We've got some consistency. But like, for example, we can't go down to like exhibition at the middle schools or to feeder schools. Like we go to a 30-minute lunch period and like spend stuff at lunch and go, hey guys, this is great. All of a sudden it worked like 3 years ago. Like in the 2023, 24 year season, all of a sudden we started getting our numbers literally doubled in 1 year. We went from like 13 kids to 26 in one school year. So that was kind of an eye-opening thing for us. And then one thing we did this year is we actually finally got to start a middle school color guard program. We don't go to the extent of, say, Ashley or Austin, like in terms of competitive. And what we did was we did an hour, 15 minutes, 2 days a week for like Q3 of school. And their big show was our home show at the beginning of spring break. So our philosophy is more of like, instead of being competitive, let's just make you fall in love with color guard and have a good time. We let 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in the program. We had 35 kids who did that, 9 of which are going to be incoming freshmen, and all those kids are not going to be in the program moving in the fall. So that's kind of how, just because of the way our school system set up, it's been a little more difficult to sort of get those things to work. They had a middle school program at our other feeder school, Altadena, pre-COVID. Once COVID hit, it kind of went under. So we haven't been able to get it going again. So this is kind of the first year since COVID we've been able to sort of make it happen with cooperation from the schools.
Did you bring color guard members to the lunches and you spun and then you said, hey, we're doing this thing for Q3, who's interested? And then that kind of kicked off that Q3?
Yeah, well, the band director at our feeder school, close to Akimal, he had brought it up that he wanted to get it started. So we took some kids down and did a show and tell at their lunch periods, and then the kids just signed up and we said, let's go. We came in and just started putting a little mini show together, and it worked out great. Did the hot to go song, the kids loved it, the parents loved it. So it was just a thing of like, Now that it's been introduced, it can become a thing. It's just the hardest thing is just getting it started. And now it's become, instead of being like this weird thing you don't know about, it's become like we know what it's like. The kids understand what it takes. So I think that's going to be great for us moving forward. And like, for example, I've had 3 kids who weren't in that program at that school already contact us because they saw it and they saw their friends doing it. So now they want to be a part of the program as well. So that's kind of a nice thing that we kind of got out of it.
So for me, I've worked at a lot of different schools in the area. And I think the thing that I've always found with recruitment is you kind of have to play all your cards until you find the card that works, because every school is different. Every school district is different. I've done recruiting in every school district in the East Valley at this point, and a lot of it has to do with the relationships that you have, the cords you can pull at each school are just always going to be a little bit different. Is the program established? Is it new? Can also be a huge factor in how you recruit. For example, at Mesa High School, when I started there, it was a well-established band program, but for the size of the school, it was the second largest high school per capita in Arizona at the time. And our marching band was only about 65, 70 members. The color guard at the time when I went in, I think we had about 8 people. And the way that we recruited there was a lot different than the way that I would recruit at, like, say, Higley High School, because the principals, the campuses were a little bit more strict about who was allowed to be on campus, what you were allowed to do. So, like, when I was in high school, Keith, we did that same thing that you were talking about. We went to the junior high and we passed out flyers and we had equipment and we went, you, 8th grader, come spin this flag right now. At Mesa, they said, no, absolutely not. You are not bringing equipment on campus. Your students aren't coming on campus. So what we ended up doing there, we luckily had really good relationships with the band directors at the different middle schools that fed us. And we found a day where myself and the percussion director and the band director from the high school went and toured the middle schools, and we spoke to the band students, the orchestra students, and the choir students. And we showed a couple videos. We spoke about the program. We talked about what the rehearsal schedule was like, what the different sections were, and that worked really well for us in that district. And then on top of that, the obvious word of mouth. But something else I will say about those schools is flyers also didn't really work at those schools. Flyers never stood on the wall for very long. They never stood on the wall for very long. So it's kind of like some things work really well at some schools and not others. When I got to Eastmark, we were starting a marching band for the first time. They had done something similar, like a pet band, pre-COVID, right when the school opened. And then post-COVID, we were essentially getting it started from the ground up again. To do a competitive marching band, I started with 4 kids. And the way that I've always recruited at Eastmark that's worked really well there is bring a friend. The bring a friend method at Eastmark has worked so, so well over the years. I've been there for, I think this was my 5th year, and we've gone from 4 kids to right now my fall guard is looking to be 30 plus. So different methods work different ways. And then at the Higley district, if you've ever been to a winter guard show here in Arizona, every school in the Higley district, every elementary school, every middle school has a color guard. And that is something that we do in that district. Is the admin at all the schools are very supportive of color guard. So we are able to have established programs at every school. And that's a really natural feeder for us, because those kids, I go bring a friend and they go, but they're all here.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Different methods for different schools.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would say ours is a little complex. So we are unified. So we go K through 12. But the feeder schools that we have 1 middle school, but we also have K through 6 and we have K through 8. And there's like 7 or 8 different schools that feed into Mountain Ridge. So it's like I have to reach out to a lot of people and reach in a lot of campuses. So I've been reaching out to a lot of the principals and choir, because we get a lot of choir kids and band directors. So we have some stuff scheduled where we're going to go meet up with some band classes and choir classes. And then we're going to some of the lunches. I actually got that idea from Keith in Desert Vista. So thank you for that. And just trying to get some people going. But the thing that works the best for us is just bring a friend, or the kids interacting and telling them their experience, and parents. That's what gets us the best recruit. We are currently actually going through we need to get the guard bigger. Like, I'm about 28 to 30 kids for next year, but we've actually been on a decline a little bit the past few seasons. So I've been trying to go a bunch of different avenues of how we can grow the color guard. So now we're having a spin clinic coming up, and we're doing a themed spin clinic where we're doing Percy Jackson. So we're going to have it all decorated in that theme. I actually interviewed a bunch of people, a bunch of the middle school team and the high school team. And I guess Percy Jackson right now is like a big deal. It probably has been in the past, but they all really like Percy Jackson. So we're doing it themed. We're actually doing it K through 12 that anyone can join and just get kids in the room because we're going to start building a K through 5th color guard and then a middle school program, and then our JV and our varsity team. Another thing that kind of hurt us in the past, and I know some people don't have this access, is we get a lot of kids during the winter season. So we don't get right in the fall season. We get kids to join in during the winter season. So in the middle of the school year. So having that JV team, we actually removed it one year when we went to Dayton, but we're going to keep it now to make sure that we're building that program because we get probably 7 or 8 kids just in the winter season. So I have a lot of avenues I've been trying to do just because we have so many schools that feed in to Mountain Ridge that it's not like just one middle school or 2 middle schools.
Our dance program in our school is really big at Desert Vistas in particular. So we actually we take kids and go in and do like little show and tells with the dance classes, particularly the freshman dance class. So they're not necessarily incoming freshmen, they're freshmen here on campus. That's how I picked up, we're actually going to do that next week. We usually pick up 3 or 4 kids from the dance program because of that as well. So that's another avenue that we kind of go into the dance school, the dance programs, because once their dance show is over, they love for people to come and do guest things because it gives the teacher kind of a day off to like just relax as well.
I want to dive into some of these that you have here. Several of you have talked about having like a middle school program or competitive or even non-competitive. Who do you have instructing that? Is that someone from your high school staff? Is it members from your high school team? Is it someone completely different?
For us, the other director here, our co-director, Carrie, she kind of spearheaded the thing, and then I was there to help support. And then we had students from the high school who actually volunteered to get in and help because that kind of, and it was mainly seniors actually, it was kind of nice. It's kind of like their parting gift because I feel like they're like, hey guys, I was you once. Okay, I was an 8th grader. I didn't know anything about Colorguard. Now I've been doing this for 4 years. And so having that sort of tie-in and that buy-in really does help the kids feel good about what they're doing. And that's how we did it. Primarily, it was like 2 of the adult staff members and then primarily the kids. And they love to do it. Like they love to teach it. And it's so funny because they'll start complaining about things. And I'm like, welcome to our world. Now you know how it feels. Yeah, all of a sudden we tell you, now you see what happens. And so it actually makes them better performers once they've had to teach a little bit as well.
We also do that. We have students teach, but it's obviously designed by, we do a lot of drill and stuff like that. So I do all the staging, but I encourage the high school kids to get in there and start designing and help teach them that. We also do a thing with that to give them like an incentive. We kind of give them a little bit of a discount on their payments for the winter season. So I make them like submit a resume and do an interview, like kind of like it's a job. So it's something that we do. And then it helps those kids learn how to teach and also get that connection between the high school team and the middle school team.
Specifically in the Higley district, between Beth and I, Beth is the director over at Williamsfield. The middle school programs and the elementary school programs all have the high school students helping as well. And for Sossaman Middle School, which is my feeder at Higley, they have a whole separate staff of people who work at that school. They're all people who have taught with me for years. Most of them I taught myself when they were coming up through high school and collegiate level color guard. So they all the information that they're giving the kids is going to benefit them at the high school level as well. But that program is thankfully run completely separate from us. And then we also have a coordinator for our elementary programs. We have currently 4 elementary schools at Higley that feed into Sossaman and then feed into Higley. We have a coordinator, Soraya, who takes care of making sure that those schools are also getting the education they need to feed into the next group. And then all of those schools also have their own staff member. So really for us, it's more like I scratch your back, you scratch the next person's back. We all kind of help each other, but we all have our own avenue that we stay within so that we make sure that nobody's overwhelmed. Because as somebody who teaches multiple programs, and I know that both of you know this very well too, it's stressful. It's stressful to have lots of students, especially when they're all at different levels, because everybody needs a little bit something different. And then at Eastmark, we're actually looking to start, Eastmark High School itself is a 7 through 12 school. So the middle school and the high school kids intermingle and they're on the same teams. But we're looking to, as the program grows, we had a JV varsity this last year, but it was still kind of both teams where the JV team was 7 through 12, the varsity team was 8 through 12. As we continue to grow, we're looking to kind of slowly widen that valley And then we're also looking to start programs at our elementary schools, but they will also have their own coaches, which will be people who have either coached with me or that I coached myself.
Dan, I know you've got a list of stuff. If I could just do one more follow-up before you go on yours. So you go to the middle schools and you say, we are going to come to their lunches. We're going to go and we're going to spin for them. What does that look like, or what do you spin, or just say, okay, some random tossing in the air? Like what is that? What are some of the things that attract those middle school students?
One of the things that I push when we go is that, well, we take a big sound system with us. We put on some cool music, and typically they're kind of like a little standoffish at first. But I like to take our current freshmen, because they know all the eighth graders on that campus. So the first thing I'll do is like, go find your friends from seventh grade that you remember from last year, and they'll start grabbing and pulling them. And once you get 3 or 4 kids out, the rest of them will start to follow. So that's kind of how we do it. We usually kind of send our freshmen out as the liaisons first line of defense, and then the upperclassmen just start walking through and kind of going through. And then once they kind of come out, start doing things like, we have a little QR code, we'll have them scan it and fill out information about them. And then we take all of our people who are with us, and whoever they went to speak with, we'll pair them up with that person, do a follow-up with them. And, hey, it was so great to meet you today. We're so happy that you found some interest. We're going to have these 2 spin clinics. We'd love to have you. And then that's kind of how we start to get with the kids, is that we kind of try to build a relationship really quickly. But we kind of use the freshmen as the guinea pigs, because they would know that rising 8th grade class, like most of them, because they were just there with them. That's kind of our first line of defense, is we use our freshmen to go out there and kind of pull those kids in to start with.
I'm just taking all this in. This is so fascinating because obviously, there's a lot of relationship that we have across our different captions. But I primarily a brass background and a visual person now, but I'm just like astounded at just how much extra work y'all are doing to create what you're creating. Like I'm aware of it, but this is giving me a whole different layer of context, and just thinking about all the different tools you need. Like it sounds like there's flyers. It sounds like there's reaching out to people, whether it's using your own students to solicit, to get their friends to come in, bring a friend, and then talk to their parents about it. Talk to the band directors at your middle schools if the admin themselves aren't complying. So you can go to the general lunch class, you can go to the band class, like you have all these different tools. I guess I'm curious if there's anything that you've done that like just straight up hasn't worked, or maybe used to work, but maybe in the past few years no longer sticks as much.
I would kind of agree with Austin. The flyer thing doesn't really work as much. It's that person-to-person contact, like getting their information. Like we'll give them a little thing that says, these are the dates for our spin clinic, but like putting flyers up around the school, or even making announcements like they used to, like, in the morning announcements. Like I found those things do not work, because kids just kind of tune those things out. It's kind of, we even go through social media stuff now as well. Like that's kind of a big push that we've got now. Like all of you may have them too. Like our captains are responsible for we have an Instagram page for the Colorguard for fall and for winter. I think the social media aspect has kind of changed the game a little bit. So anything you can do to sort of bring in more of the technology aspect of connecting with the students really quickly has seemed to work better for us, with the QR codes and getting their information, and then following up with like a phone call or those types of things seem to be working better than just put a flyer and make some announcements.
Yeah, I think for us, the thing that hasn't worked is I've actually went into all the beginning dance classes to recruit, and we maybe got one kid from it. But I mean, it's different at every school. But that was one thing that didn't work for us. One thing I do want to say about the recruiting thing is we actually ask the comm team and the cheer team for their cut list, so they can so we can reach out to them, or they direct them over to us, because some of those kids are just like, well, what do I do? Well, this is something you can do, and it helps them grow. Like if they do want to end up doing cheer or pom, this is something for them to help to continue growing. But usually they end up just staying with us.
I would just echo what Keith said. The flyers, we still do them because I think it's important. So just like have that out there and like have the dates visible. So like, a kid might hear in passing, like, you should do Colorguard and have that one-on-one, and then the flyer reinforces the information at least. But they definitely don't work the way they used to. I think kids are so inundated with information now, whether it be from social media or just like the flyers all over the campus. I know our student councils at my schools are really good about putting butcher paper everywhere. And so I think they get a little blind when they walk through the halls. I think the social media stuff helps a lot, but yeah, the word of mouth. The thing that I found that helps with the flyer game is having the band director hand the flyers to the students and say, pass these out in your classes. Instead of just hanging them on the walls, we have like little half sheets that they'll physically hand to their friends or hand to people in their classes. And I found that that usually helps a little bit more to get kids to sign up. What I will say about all of that too is once the kid is in the room, it's, I'd say 85% of the time they're going to stay in the room. 85 to 90% of the time they will stay. The trouble is getting them to the actual clinic, right? I'll get, a sign up sheet with 40 kids on it and I might have 30 show up, right? But once those 30 show up, I'm probably going to keep about 29 of them. So
Yeah.
That's an awesome segue actually to something that I was thinking. So you do all this recruiting and you've got all this interest now. And now, all right, what do I do with them the first day? What is the first day with them or the very beginning? What does that first day look like? And actually before that, it's probably a week or two before that first day that you reached out to them. Do you do like follow-up calls or follow-up messages, or how does that work?
We typically do the follow-up with the messages with the students, particularly we want to get in touch with the parent as soon as possible too, and kind of explain them what we're doing. What I like to do that we started, which it worked really well, was like you said with Austin, once you get the kid in the room, it's really that's the key. So we got the kid in the room and every vet was paired with a new person or two for that entire practice. And it wasn't about spinning color guard. It's like, here's a fun piece of music. Let's learn a fun little dance, and then maybe the last 30 minutes, here's a flag. We're going to learn how to throw something in the air. So it's just kind of get them familiar with that part. What I did last year that worked really, really well was when the parents did the drop off, I asked the parents to stay for about 15 minutes and I gave them just a quick overview of what it was about. This is what we're doing. Because being a teacher at the school, it kind of helps give me a little more clout because I've been here so long. It kind of explains to them. And one of the big things that I push off the parents is that your student as an incoming freshman is coming to a school of 2,800 students, and they're going to have instantly 130 to 140 new friends from not only ninth grade, but all the way up to seniors to help them guide them through those first couple of weeks of the school. And then that's kind of how I hook them a little bit of like, they're going to have this sense of camaraderie before they even get to the high school that a lot of students won't have. And so from a parent point of view, they're sending a little baby to high school for the first time ever. So that to me, kind of once you get the parent mind of like, oh, my student's going to be instantly know all these people. They need help. And I talk about, if your student needs help with homework, you've got a senior who's taken that class, so you've got all these different avenues for your child to feel more welcome and more connected to the school before they even get on campus. And so I kind of try to sell it on that aspect because our community is really big on like that community sense of things. So I kind of go to the parent aspect of like, I can get them hooked a little bit. Then if the kid's like, I'm not sure, it's like, no, honey, go do it. Go another day. Trust me, that kind of thing. And that usually helps a lot too. I would invite the parents to come in like for the last, when they come pick the kids up, like if we're doing like 6, 7:30, come in at 7:15, just watch what we're doing, just to kind of let them see what's happening. And that kind of makes them feel like it's a welcoming community as well. And that worked really well last year.
We also do the parent meeting before, just so that the parents are aware of what's happening. Because if we've learned in the past, if you do a spin clinic and you send your child home and they're like, what is color guard? And I'm getting all these questions, you can get ahead of all the questions if you have that meeting before. And then we do the same thing as well. We try to get all of the vets to go be with the new kids, because I feel like something that I've done in the past, like when I was a younger instructor, is let's teach them all the basics. And then I start interviewing all the kids and they're like, yeah, that was boring. So they want to learn all the things right away. Obviously, that's not like the step you want to do once they get into the program, but you're trying to get them excited about color guard. And I think a lot of instructors think, oh, I need to teach them all the basics. And then that doesn't get them excited right away. You want to get them excited first.
Day one for us, personally, the programs that I work with, we have what I would call hands-off parents. They're a parent drop-off, I'll see you 10 minutes after rehearsal ends kind of parents. I don't have a lot of super like involved in terms of like those kind of things. So usually with our parents, we send emails right after the workshop process, and then we use Slack to communicate. So all the parents get added to a parent Slack channel where we disperse information from. But day one for us usually looks like, the way I really like to do it is most of the beginning of the process for us is student-led, because the scariest part of being in the room for color guard for a lot of students is what they say is me. I'm 6'4". I'm pretty imposing. So I like to give them the 5'6" senior who's going to help them kind of learn the ropes. They break into a lot of groups. The staff will guide through stretch. We'll usually do like a Zumba to begin the day because Zumbas are fun and they're silly. And it's dancing, but not really. It's a warm up. And then a lot of that first day is guided by the staff, but led by the students to allow them to not only have a little bit of a lighter room to try new things in, right? They're not doing something for like scary adults in the front of the room. They're doing it with just like another student that they are going to know really well. But it also helps them mingle right away, get to know each other. It kind of creates natural conversation from the older students to the younger ones. So they immediately start to get to know each other a little bit better. And I found that it really helps with the early season divide because that's almost always something that you deal with early season, especially in the fall, is that divide from like upperclassmen to lowerclassmen. And it almost immediately kind of helps to disperse that because they're forced to communicate with each other and get to know each other and kind of be vulnerable around each other. So that's how our like day 1, day 2, day 3 looks like usually.
We'll put them in a circle every day for those little things. Ask question of the day. They have to go in and ask a question, and then kind of see that, oh, that person's just like me. That's my favorite color too, or that's my favorite song. And so that kind of also helps sort of build that little. There's a community from the very beginning.
I'm curious what the like at what point is it like spin clinic, like fun, just try it out kind of day versus like formal tryouts? Like, do you do both? Do you only do the tryouts? Is it different for fall and winter? How do we sort of segue from just getting them connected at all to actually doing the thing in training?
We don't do tryouts for the fall season. Obviously, we do tryouts for like weapon lane and all that, but we don't cut anyone. We start doing the technique stuff once we get past our startup day. So our startup day is when all the parents come and we have the whole band that's coming in that's all registered for the class, and we do like a show reveal and all that stuff. But we don't start doing actual basics until the summer, just because I just have learned, at least from the groups I've been with, I can't speak for every group, but just the basics can get a little boring, and they want to know the fun stuff that's going to come with the actual season instead of the technique part. So we don't start until the summer.
For us, I usually label in their schedules, there's workshop days and then there's summer rehearsals. And so usually at the end of the workshops is when we kind of get serious about it. But throughout the whole process, we like to interject, like, especially during the summer, watching time where we put on like drum corps or old shows or winter guard and just kind of getting them excited. Usually once the band director gives me permission, we'll share the show with them and they'll start learning choreography from the show and stuff throughout the summer. Because yeah, like Ashley said, like the summer can be arduous at times because especially for the older members, if this is their 4th time doing summer practices, they're like, I get it. I know what a drop spin is, right? And so you just gotta have to kind of find things that help them have fun. We do bigs and littles as well. So a lot of times to help kind of with those older members find motivation through the summer is their task is to make sure that their littles are caught up. And so their focus goes from how am I getting better at my drop spins that I've done for 4 years straight? And it goes to how can I help Susie Lou get better at her drop spins? And so it's kind of developing them in a different way. And I've always found that when the kids, I think somebody else said this already, but when the kids start teaching, they immediately become better themselves because just saying the information, sometimes it clicks for them in a different way than it did before. I also don't do tryouts. If I'm being totally frank, I want every kid in the room. The things that like I'm contesting with, like I think Eastmark's a really good example of this. The Colorguard program last year was 25, and we had I think 21 wind players in the marching band. So things that we're looking at this year is instead of cutting kids, we're looking at potentially doing like a JV varsity situation for the fall season, and what does a JV situation look like, and how can I keep kids in the program doing the thing without having to cut a student, right? Because once you cut a student, they're not going to come back, right? So you got to keep those kids in the program. So yeah, like I said, we try to get them in the door, and once they're there, hopefully they stay.
Yeah, we're also no cut as well. What we discovered last year is that we took more of a winter guard approach to our fall season. So same with kind of speak to Ashley. It's like we have like 2 spin clinics, then we have a band startup day, which is where we start introducing technique and things and kind of reveal the show. And then We have like 4 summer rehearsals. They give them like a few weeks off, but those 4 summer rehearsals, once we know that they're in and they're committed, then we'll start that process and start doing the technique. But we have a certain set of skills, and there's a certain day that they have to be able to do certain things. And once they start learning choreography, they have to do memory testing on the choreography. And so what we've typically learned is that you have to have these skills by this time in order to be in certain parts. And so what we discovered is for the big opening of the show, we started with X amount of kids, and we added more kids in. So the big hit had everybody on the field. And then when the next part came in, about 10 kids went behind the props, who were all the new kids. So the vets carried the heavy load for a good chunk. And then we brought them out for the big impact points so they weren't overloaded throughout the show. And so we kind of found that worked really well of not keeping everybody on the field at all times, because a freshman's stress level on an entire show versus a senior is going to be a lot different. So we discovered last year, through the prop thing, we were able to manipulate bringing on, because we have 32 in the color guard. So I had 10 weapons. Okay, my top 10 flies come out and be 20. We'll bring the other 10 out for the impact point. And they kind of went back to the props. And so that was how we were able to delineate sort of skill levels throughout the grade levels. And it worked really, really well for us this past fall.
I think that's good too. Sorry. That's like a thing I'm like obsessed with is just, yeah, you don't want to overwhelm the newer kids with responsibilities throughout the whole show. But then I know this is about recruiting, but it also helps from a GE standpoint as well, because you're not having the field saturated with all the kids at all times. So it works in a lot of ways to not have all the kids on the field all the time.
So when you have a new member, and I'm wondering, do they get intimidated the first time you start doing some technique and some basics and things like that, and you start hearing the word I can't, or they get discouraged, or maybe they don't have the grit that's needed? What are some of the ways to work around that?
I think reassurance is a big one. Like just reminding them that everyone starts somewhere. We actually even do this thing, the kids started doing it, where they started recording videos of themselves when they start, like their freshman year to their senior year. So I have a lot of, seniors that are very skilled. So we show those, we use Slack as well. We show those to remind the newer kids, like, hey, everyone starts somewhere and look at where they are now, so that they can see that there is a process and they can get to that process.
That's awesome.
I think positive reinforcement is so important, and rewarding every small victory. I just had this last week the workshops for Eastmark for the first time, and today we start workshops for Higley. And something that I found really helped with those kids that are, you're doing something like an across the floor, and even if it's just walking in time, it's so exposed and scary for the first time. And even just like calling them out, or it also kind of depends on the temperament of the student, right? But like either pulling them aside or calling them out in front of the group and just being like, hey, I really loved that you were able to hold your head up high while you did that. And just like calling out those little positive moments that they had and not highlighting it, and with your older students, you're going to like compliment sandwich them. I don't even worry about that with the new kids. I just want them to, trust me, they are compliment sandwiching themselves, right? We just got to encourage the crap out of them. And then I think something else that's really important is we have a couple catchphrases. Do it scared is become so big for us in really every group that I teach, because at the world class level, it's, hey, I need you to turn 2 times underneath this and then catch it in a backhand. And, the 21-year-old's shaking in their boots and it's like, do it scared. I bet you'll surprise yourself. And then with the freshmen, it's doing a pull hit, letting go of the flag for the first time. And then just reminding them that every failure is a step towards victory, and just continuing to encourage them that if they don't make the error, they'll never find the right answer. They've got to be willing to fail in order to succeed.
Something we did that's worked out really well for us too in that same vein is I call it reverse engineering technique. So for example, if we want them to toss a double on flag, we start with a single. So like if I'm doing choreography, we'll build in, it's going to be a single. We're going to hold it for 2 counts because we know that 2 months down the road, that will go to a single and a half up to a double. So that's kind of how we kind of reverse engineer our technique. And we'll also build a lot of our choreography around the technique that the kids are doing. So they're getting that reinforcement over and over and over again. And they can attest to this. Like you can talk to a kid and walk them through and explain how to do the technique, but sometimes they just have to do it 1,000 times. Like I need you to do this drop spin till you can't do it anymore. I need you to do this toss, you can't do it anymore. Like it just comes to that repetition. So when you can enforce the technical skills that you want them to achieve on a basic level, you can sort of build on that foundation and keep adding layers to it. So that's kind of where like we build our technique. Our June technique doesn't necessarily look like October technique or November technique, because we'll keep adding more elements to it. As the kids get stronger and get more comfortable on the basics, we'll keep adding more things to it. So that's kind of how we build our technique program to kind of make it work for the kids. And so that success comes just from, we're all starting at this level and we'll just keep adding more incremental things to it so they don't realize they're getting strong on things or getting good at what they're doing, in a sense. They kind of trick them into that idea.
Another thing we try to do, even with our older members, is just we don't try to say in the beginning, like, this is going to be hard. We just, we just teach it. And then the kids don't know if it's hard or not, because, I mean, they will eventually. But I think if you preface it by saying, hey, this is going to be hard, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, okay. And they're going to get that in their head instead of just going through it and kind of not getting them to psych themselves out before we even taught anything. So I think that's a big thing that we've been trying to do at Mountain Ridge, is just teaching it and not saying, hey, this is going to be hard or anything like that. We just go with it.
So I'm just reminded of earlier, I think it was Austin that said that there's like, once you get them into the room the first time, like 85-90% of them are going to be retained, and you all nodded your heads. I'm curious about, does that statistic hold true from like year 1 to year 2? So it's one thing to get them to do the full first season, but then like, do they stick around? And what do you do to keep that retention rate high?
We've been fairly fortunate the past few years, since like 2023, 24. Like, our numbers have held very consistent from season to season, even from winter to fall. I mean, from fall to winter, fall to winter. Like I said, we have we've averaged 28 to 32 in the fall and 20 to 25 in the winter. So that retention, and we have a couple kids, and you guys know this too, that they choose to do fall, but they don't do winter. They just come back, they only do fall only, that sort of thing. So it just kind of, I guess, once you breathe the consistency of the program, and when you breathe success and the kids are there and they're talking about having a good time with it, for our group, it's the community. Like, the parents are seeing their kids come home happy, in a good mood. And so that kind of precipitates that culture, I guess. You've kind of built a culture of like, it's a great place, we have a good time, the kids are successful, they feel that they've accomplished something, and so they want to come back. And so I think that's just the consistency of having a consistent program, that the kids feel good about what they're doing and they're having a great experience. I think that breeds the retention of what you want, in a sense.
I think for us is just having that one-on-one connection, making sure that the kids that are in the room that you're teaching, because it's easy to kind of miss a child, that you haven't spoken to, and then they're like, oh, I feel like I wasn't good or whatever. Like, you should be in the room talking to them and reassuring them and giving them positive feedback on a one-on-one level. I try to do that with all my kids. And one way that I do that is we do a lot of like homework assignments or testing and stuff like that. So I get to have a lot of one-on-one connections with the kids because I talk to them all the time.
I think between my two schools, we have very different cultures. At Higley, a lot of the students have done Colorguard since 4th grade, right? And if not 4th, probably 7th. And so by the time they get to the high school level, I do have a lot more students who are like, I'm a fall only kid, or I'm a winter only kid. Something else about the Higley district is a lot of those kids do a lot of extracurriculars. We're also literally spitting distance from the EVIT campus. And so I would say probably about half of my students participate in EVIT, the East Valley Institute of Technology, which does most of their classes in the afternoon, that goes into after school hours. So I have a lot more students at that program that are like one or the other or fluctuate, but I'm usually keeping students to some capacity from their freshman to their senior year. Whereas at Eastmark, the kids are diehard. The kids at Eastmark are diehard Colorguard. They usually do Colorguard and really only Colorguard, or they're Colorguard band kids or Colorguard choir kids. I have a lot of choir kids, actually, honestly, at both schools. And so that program is a lot more like, I'm getting the same kid from 7th grade all the way to 12th grade every single season. And only recently, as the program has grown, have we kind of started to see a couple more of those variables. But as we're seeing this fall, a lot of those kids that didn't do winter season regretted it and came back. So we'll see where that turns out. Still a very new program over there, so we're still kind of feeling out where we're going.
I also wanted to say, we also try to do, because some parents struggle, with the, oh, my kids can't do their homework because they're doing this activity. We try to do tutoring, so we try to do that to make sure that the parents keep them in the program. Or like we'll even, if the kids are falling behind on some of their assignments, we'll make sure that at the beginning of rehearsal sometimes that we'll give them like an hour or something, whatever time we have, to make sure that they're working on that so that they can continue to stay in the program and reassure their parents that they can balance it. And then we also try to help them with learning how to balance, you know, being in high school and, doing this extracurricular activity.
Yeah, we did similar thing. What she's mentioned is we'll pair our freshman with a junior or a senior. Like, okay, you've taken this class, I've taken this class, and like a lot of them will just stay after school and they'll work with the student in that realm. I literally did this last fall and this winter. I had a kid who was not passing the class, and they came to rehearsal with their books and sat on the sideline and sat in the bleachers and did their homework. And I said, "You're not back on this floor until you finish this, and I will go check with your teacher tomorrow morning to make sure that you turn this in on Canvas, or you can come and practice, but you're not on the floor anymore." And you'd be amazed at how, because I think you probably know this too. It's hard sometimes for kids to get motivated in the classroom, but you can motivate them with this thing you're holding over their head about you want to participate in this program, but you can't because we can't sacrifice the problem of thinking of you not being able to go to a competition. I use that all the time. I'm like, you'll be on the sideline. We had it 3 kids at one point on the sideline back in the fall. I had one this winter for like 2 rehearsals. For 2 4-hour rehearsals, they were on the sideline doing homework. So those are things that we kind of implement, and they know. And once the kids see it, they're like, "Oh crap, I don't want to be on the sideline." And it sort of precipitates that whole "I better keep my grades up" type of thing. So.
And I'm sure the parents appreciate you doing that because they're hearing that from home as well, and that you're supporting it. The parents are bought in 100% on that. Dan, I'll tell you what, I feel like I could talk for another hour, but it's been almost an hour. I'm wondering if maybe we do a part 2 sometime in the future. Um, but I think we need to kind of close up. Is there anything, Dan, that you wanted to ask real quick before we do our final questions?
Oh man, I ditto to all this. This has all been so informative for me, and I'm not even trying to develop a color guard. So thank y'all so much for this information. I guess I would want to know, like, I'm thinking about the first year instructors or the first year directors. I feel like, I don't know how prevalent this is for the color guard community in Arizona, but I know for the visual side of things, it's like if you want to teach visual, almost always you are like the only visual instructor and the de facto caption head. And that's like a lot to have on your plate. And with color guard, it would be even more responsibility as a director. What advice might you give to a first year instructor or especially a first year director?
I say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Find mentors. Don't be afraid. It's okay if you don't know stuff. Like, send videos, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you are doing the things that you need to do to be successful, because you won't know unless you have some sort of guidance. And there's many people in Arizona that I'm one Facebook message, one Instagram message away, that if you had any questions about anything, recruiting, design, what technique or anything, I am an open door. And I'm sure Keith and Austin are the same way.
Yes. One of my old instructors, I got it like years and years ago, said you should get one of those little pen buttons with a pen on it, and you should put it on, and you should turn it upside down. You should write the word KISS, KISS on it, and it stands for Keep It Simple Stupid. Like you being the stupid one. And I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing is like, I think first year instructors, they feel like if you just take it slow, take it methodically, do it at your own pace, you have time to build. You don't want to overdo things to the point to where you can't get yourself out of it. And I think that's usually a common mistake with newer instructors. They feel like they have to do all these cool things that they can do, but not necessarily giving the kids the necessary tools to do the things they want them to do. So that's my whole thing is like start simple and then build up as you get more comfortable, get more calm, and you get more confidence, and your kids get better at what they're doing as well. Like a year 1 for me at Desert Vista looks a lot different than year 15, because I've been here a while. I know what to expect. I know the community. I know what the kids are capable of and that sort of thing. And I know my staff as well. So
A huge one for me, especially if you're a younger new instructor, is don't measure success competitively. Measure it based on the students and meet the students where they are, right? If it's a newer program or a growing program or a program that's kind of like you're going in and you're trying to keep it alive, meet them where they are and help them grow and give them a good experience. But don't forget that you're the adult in the room. I think that's a huge mistake a lot of young instructors make is they forget that they're not their friend. They're the adult supervisor, right? Be friendly, but don't be their best friend, right? Give them a great experience. Don't put all the weight in the world on the competitive success the first year or two, right? Give the kids a great time, grow with them, and then eventually the competitive success will come because you're going to grow as well, right? You're going to go to critiques and you're going to meet new people and you're going to start to build your community around you. And I think just reiterating what Ashley said, reach out to the community. There's so many people out there that are willing to give you help. Facebook pages, Instagram pages. There's the WJZ board, the AZMBA board that are all, you send an email, I guarantee you're going to get a response quickly for any kind of resources or help. So that's my biggest piece of advice for a new instructor.
I'm blown away with you three. I'm so impressed. And, for all of our listeners, yes, they have an unbelievable amount of experience as performers and they've been teaching for a long time. But I think a key part that I'm seeing has less to do with the spinning and the technical parts, but your compassion for our students and you're willing to put the students first and the care that you have for all of your members. And I think that is a huge part that hopefully everybody else is grabbing as well as to why you're having that success, because it's very obvious hearing you guys speak. And as a teacher myself, I appreciate that from all of you. So that's incredible. We always like to ask all of our guests if you have any shout outs that you would like to give on the podcast so people can hear it. This is your opportunity.
Oh,
No shout outs.
cut this out.
It's all about us. It's all about us.
Shout out to Keith and Austin.
And that's to Ashley and Austin.
Ethan Ashley.
Okay, pageant answers. That's fine.
Okay. No, that's all good. Well, Dan and I would like to do a shout out to you three because we think that this is going to be incredible for our listeners. And before we sign off, we do have an email for some of our listeners if they would like to message in and give us any feedback or comments. We actually have a question that's out to our circuit at this point. We're asking for any dilemmas that you might have that you're facing at the end of the school year or maybe going into summer that you'd like for us to speak about on the podcast. You can email us at podcast@azmba.org. You three, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.